Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for coming back to my channel. I really appreciate it. This video here is a follow-up to a previous post where I essentially laid out for you a handful of information, advice regarding financial planning and financial literacy, right? Saving, getting on a budget, contributions to your company-sponsored retirement plan, creating your own investment tool, whether that be a Roth IRA or some other investment tool that might be out there for you to consider. But I really am very passionate about this topic that I want to address today. And that is a discussion around debt. And it's a very common, misunderstood belief that debt is sort of unavoidable, totally necessary. But certain types of debt can be useful when managed properly, such as your mortgage, perhaps student loans. That's a conversation for another day. I was a Pell Grant recipient. I do have my degrees, which back then I took out some student loans. We have since paid all of those at an aggressive rate to remove that debt from our life. It really drags you down. Any debt drags you down. It keeps you locked in like this permanency of not being able to get ahead, step up your lifestyle, step up your savings, step up your planning for retirement. And I'm really torn about the waiving of student loans because I paid mine. I know they're difficult. I understand that paying those means you can't do something else. But every person who went to college, went to a university, whether community college, four-year institution, and certainly grad school, etc., you know that you're going to have to pay that money back. There's no, I didn't know. I got to pay this much now that I graduate, and I want to do all these other things in my life. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, okay? So if you're here and you're thinking about getting a student loan, really question that decision, okay? There's a lot of other factors that go into it, but really think about what it means to be in student loan debt when you retire, when you are into your profession, and if and when you have a family. Like, that student loan debt can spiral out of control and hold you back, okay? Debt is not a part of normal life. It's just not. There's credit card debt, there's mortgage, there's student loans, there's car payments, there's furniture payments, there's all kinds of debt out there, should you choose to go after it. But essentially, you're buying things that you literally cannot afford. You literally cannot afford to buy something, therefore you're going to use credit to do it and pay that back over a certain period of time. And it's just not good. People think you need credit to build like a credit score. Totally false, okay? Totally false. You don't need to carry debt to build credit, right? Like using credit responsibly to pay off your balances in full each month, that creates a history of positive, and responsible debt usage. Okay, I'm not advocating for people to go out and get yourself in a bunch of debt. Absolutely not. You'll hear different personalities say credit cards are evil, only use debit cards. You've got some people that are like, oh, credit cards are awesome if you pay off your balance every month and you get all these reward points and you can get vacations and all this sort of stuff. The really rich and the financially independent out there, they know that debt holds you back. You just don't need to get into debt so you can get into more debt. Like, no. Okay? That's just not a smart decision. Some people think debt is an investment, right? Like, hey, I'm going to take on debt and I'm going to use it as an investment. And, whether that be like strategically borrowing for some investment, we don't borrow money to go try to earn money. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Okay? You're going to have to prioritize the debt repayment. Like, you just have to do it. You got to clean it off your books. There's a lot of discussion out there about how you can do that. Some people like to start with the smallest amount owed rather than the highest interest rate. There's some advantages to doing that. In other words, you get your small stuff paid off first. You got a couple of wins. You take that money that you're paying on that. You apply that to the next loan you have. You concentrate on that. You pay that off. Now you've got a couple of debts that have been repaid, and so on and so forth. Some people like to start at the highest interest rate, and I can see where that makes sense. Again, you're going to have to think about what works best for your situation, but absolutely get rid of these things. The minimum monthly payments every month, and not going to get it done. Okay, it's not going to get it done. You got to be a little bit, smarter than that. What are some other misleading, misunderstood philosophies around that? Low interest debt, I guess. Now we're talking about mortgage rates and the upper 6, lower 7 percentages, where a few years back we're talking 3-4% interest rate. It doesn't matter if it's 3% or 30%. It's not good. It's taking away your wealth building opportunity, which is the number one tool for you for financial independence, is your income, what's coming in, and looking at what's going out. You've got to bring in more than what's going out, and you've got to bring in more than what's going out. Plus, you have to be saving. Okay? That's why if you're in an employee-sponsored plan of some sort, it just comes right out of your paycheck. You don't even see it. And that's kind of a no-brainer, because you'll wake up in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years later, and you've been doing that, and you take a look at your statements and you're like, wow, I can't believe that this money has grown this much over this period of time. It's really cool to see that. Okay. So those are some just common misunderstandings that I think we should be thinking about and making decisions about what we choose to put on credit as opposed to what we choose to pay for cash. I'm in the latter category. I tend to pay items with cash. Why? Well, because I'm not going into debt, and if we can't afford it, we don't buy it. Okay, so that's the key. Like, if you ask yourself, and it's a difficult question to ask because nobody wants to admit it. Like, no, you don't have enough money to afford. You cannot afford those pair of shoes. If you have to put it on a credit card that you can't pay off at the end of the month, you can't afford that pair of shoes. Insert baseball bat, golf club, vacation, right? Meal, like whatever it is. If you can't afford to pay cash for it and pay it off, like right when the statement is due, like you just literally can't afford that. Oh, well, Dan, like why would I pay cash when I could get like 3% interest rate? Well, that's fine. It's always fine until something happens. You lose your job, somebody dies, you have an unexpected emergency at home. Like, everything's fine until something happens. Like, for those of you who are familiar with Mike Tyson, I'm paraphrasing him, but I remember him saying in a video one time about, it was an interview after one of his fights, or maybe it was before the fight, but essentially, interviewer stuck a microphone in his face, and Mike Tyson was like, yeah, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And yeah, that is true. You are planning to pay off ABC debt, but D, E, and F happen in your life, and therefore you can't do it. And what happens then? That specific credit card doesn't get paid for that purchase that you shouldn't have bought anyway, right? So you get behind on that, you start accruing interest and late fees, and it just spirals. And the next thing you know, you're waking up and you're like hating your job. You're going to work to pay off debt, making somebody else rich, driving around in stupid cars that you can't afford, and driving around in, or, having all the niceties of life, right? That's a little bit of a societal issue that we have here in the United States. I'm sure it's elsewhere in the world as well. But this whole idea that, you need to fulfill your lifestyle via debt is just absolutely insane. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm having fun thinking about topics I want to talk about. Once we get some more channel subscribers and we can get some good comments in the chat, I'll host a couple of live sessions because I'd love to hear what others have to say about this. I'm just one person with one story, and there's a lot of you out there who need the advice, who are struggling to make sense of it all. There's other viewers, hopefully, that are here because they want confirmation that what they're doing is correct. Like, what do they say? There's more than one way to slice an apple, right? Same thing here. Financial planning. There's not one right way. There's a lot of ways that can be successful. And there's a lot of ways that things can be a disaster, and it starts with debt. Okay, I'm not talking about mortgage debt. That's another conversation for another time. That one tends to make sense. But that type of home in which what you can afford is probably a bigger conversation than we have here remaining in this video today. A lot of people who are in good financial shape will say put 20% down. That way you don't have to have a PMI, which is a mortgage insurance. If you put 20% down, the banks and the mortgage lenders don't require that insurance. There's probably other workarounds and things like that. I have someone in the family who is on the lending side, and maybe we'll get him to share some comments or some strategies for how you can have discussions with your future mortgage lender, because I think a lot of people just like, hey, what's my payment going to be? What's my interest for how long, etc. But there are a ton of tools and strategies that a proper lender can talk to you about. It may not make sense for everybody, but for someone here, they may hear a strategy, a tip, a suggestion regarding the mortgage that may be a perfect match for what they need. I'm going to wrap it up here for today. Thank you so much for spending some time here today. I hope you're enjoying what I'm putting out there so far, and I hope you have a great day, evening, morning, wherever you are, and we'll reconnect soon. Goodbye.